So I think let's jump right into it. So you mentioned that you started your journey as sort of like a incubator. So what do you think a founder's initial thought process is, or like what do you want to tell them when they are looking for their initial funding and they are just right out there with their idea only probably, or like a really early prototype of their product?
Right. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges. Out of 100, I would say only a handful, probably 10, 12 founders are actually able to cross that idea threshold and start building an MVP or even like getting traction on what they're sort of building. And then one of the reasons is because that, the initial probably funding they need can be like from 50,000 to maybe a crore, right? Depending on the business you are. And we're talking about general terms. Of course, there's specific companies who might need more. But yeah, so in this space, getting that to kickstart is something which is very difficult because you only have an idea in your head. And a lot of times people don't take you seriously and you don't know where to go and where to get that sort of initial capital. So of course you have incubators now, or even players like Entrepreneur First or a Vicom or something that can probably give you a 500k check initially. But now this is of course a very good set, but it's a very limited set. So you probably would have like 10, 12 players, max to max I think 20. I don't think there are 20 players that who's giving you like a pre-seed sort of funding or an idea stage funding. And of course, it's a longer journey, which also, has legal hassles and it can also be disheartening if you're not selected there. You sometimes might get a grant, you might not get a grant. Though it's a very solid, if you do get it, right, it gives you that stamp. It gives a lot of them give you office space, a lot of give you easy credits and access to their network. So I think that is something you should explore. But parallelly, one thing which is very, very important, and I very vocally say this, is that you have to pitch, and you have to pitch to like your friends, your family, your colleagues, people you know, because as a founder, and there's one skill that has to go hand in hand if you want to be successful, which is the skill of sales, or to sell your product, to sell yourself. Because if, let's say, even if you're not a consumer faced business, probably you're a B2B or whatever, you have to sell to your client, or a consumer, you have to sell to your investor. You have to sell to probably, if you're doing something very innovative, you have to sell to the government saying that no, this is required. This is required. Probably in the fintech space, you've seen where founders have gone and shaped the regulations with the authorities as well. So you're constantly selling, and that journey should begin with the idea when you have it. So one of the reasons is that you get constant feedback, and I have seen in my incubation journey that the first year of you building something is 80% feedback. And it's very similar, as kids, right? When we're kids, the first thing we learn is balancing. We don't, learn running. So as soon as as a child, we learn how to balance ourselves on two legs, or maybe when we're walking and one leg is in the air and the other one is on the floor. That's the core. Then we can run, and then we can hop, and then we can jog, and then we can walk. We can do so much more. But the balancing part is very important. Similarly, your first year of your business is key, is crucial to get that feedback. So let's say you're going to your friends who might be a customer, or you're going to a colleague, or you're going to your parents, and you're asking them for money. So if you're asking, even if you're asking for 5,000 in India for somebody, they're going to ask you questions. And what happens is, let's say as a founder, you can think about why variables, right? But when you go to people, it's always y plus 1.
Right.
Always, because they bring insights from their experiences. They ask you questions, and it's important to be wise enough to not be arrogant there. So you can have like total faith in your idea, but you also need to have the wisdom of when to take the right feedback. Or maybe this would work, or maybe this would not work. Maybe I have to figure another way out to do business. So very, very important. You need to start pitching to people, And I think if you're one of those founders who sort of believe that, oh, I want to keep the idea to myself and people will copy it or whatever, I think there are a lot of interviews and books written by the most successful billion trillion dollar running founders saying that that is not the right mindset to have. Right? Because execution is the key to a successful business, and it kind of shows that you might not have that 100% confidence in yourself for the execution part, and it's really important to get feedback.
No, absolutely. I think you make a really interesting point in terms of the pitching process as well as the feedback. I think as an entrepreneur myself, I can vouch for it that in this process you also create like a core sort of feedback group for yourself also, that okay, these are the 5 people that I want to first discuss any random thought process that comes to my mind with, and maybe a lot of qualitative inputs actually end up coming from there in those discussions with them.
And I think one of the funny things you can do is this was an advice that I got from my mentor, and he said, Deshna, when you start pitching, pitch to people you don't want money from. Like even if they're ready to give you money, you don't want to take it from, or that they will not give you money. It's such a good practice. Right? So this one conjuice friend of yours or a chacha of yours, I don't know who, ever doesn't want to give you money or will not give you money, go and pitch to them. Because they will put you on the spot more than an investor would. And even like coming back to my old point, that the whole institution part, of course, it's a very good place to raise money from. You don't get as much feedback as you would like, because they're also very busy, right? They're probably screening thousands of companies. It's not easy for them to give you feedback on each aspect of your business.
Right. No, that's actually like a really interesting point where I think a lot of people actually try and avoid like have that negative list that this person will anyway not give me any money, so why should I go to them? But yeah, the feedback aspect and maybe the validation at the end of it, that okay, this I was not expecting, that okay, even this person is ready to cut a check, that means I might have something really on my hands. Very interesting point. So now let's fast forward to a point that you have raised that initial sort of pre-seed angel sort of a funds, and now you are with your MVP or have some sort of a product market fit established. What next? How do you go about your next big round?
Right. So I think I'll just dial it back a little bit. I think some sort of product market fit is actually at this stage of our ecosystem not enough, right? You need traction. Now traction does not always mean revenue. It can be probably, if you're like let's say you're a B2G sort of product, right, where you're actually actively working with the government. You might not have an order from them, but there is a lot of conversation and trial and testing and pilots. So you're a B2B, you're doing pilots with a lot of companies who are your potential clients, and you're working with them parallelly. If you're a B2C, you've actually, other than the 10 people you've actually tested your product outside, who are your customers, right, who fit in that parameter that you said, okay, probably my customer is between 18 to 30 and blah 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 blah, earns XYZ. Traction is key nowadays, because you have to understand, as founders, there's a lot of competition, there are a lot of great people building great things, and as investors at an early stage, let's say seeds funding or even pre-series A sort of funding, they also are taking a lot of risk, and what that sort of traction number brings is that a level of confidence, yes, that the idea you as a founder have, there is, if not 100%, at least 60, 70, 80% of it is, bang on right, or, you are actually able to sell, even your sales capability, you're actually able to sell, you're able to build a partnership probably with the government or a B2B player or a consumer. So I think that is key. And then when it comes to fundraising, let me break this down to you in terms of timelines. So timelines in fundraising can be anywhere. If you're doing like a public deal, which is through an angel network or a syndicate or a platform like an AngelList or a Let's Venture, it can be about from 3 months, it can go like a minimum 3 months, and if you're doing like a private deal, can go even above beyond a year. But I would say that an average this thing is from 3 to 8 months or 11 months that you're looking at in fundraising. What is the difference between a public and a private deal? Is a public deal is where you sort of go to a network, you tell them, they have a screening team, so probably you pitch to them and they said, okay, this fits our investors thesis at a larger scale, and they make you pitch publicly to all investors, and whoever is interested invests in your company. So here, of course, good things are that you get a lot of feedback again. Two, you get a lot of network. So let's say you're a SaaS company, and in that network you have probably people from Oracle, the board members of Oracle there, or ND, Salesforce and other players. So you kind of also get that network. And there's a lot of information sharing there, and it's also quicker to raise funds, and the probability of you raising funds are much higher in a public sort of network than at a private space again. When you go to a private like let's say VC, a micro VC sort of to raise funds, it is, of course, they're usually more premium in terms of that they're perceived to be more premium in the ecosystem. But again, here they also come, of course, with a lot of portfolio support, and there's a lot of founder to founder networking there, which really sort of helps you as a founder. But again, cracking a private VC, a micro VC at an early stage is very difficult, and it takes much longer. So as a founder, you can choose public or private, or I've seen a lot of companies who get like a term sheet from a private and then also open their deal to public, because the pros of doing a public deal is also very high. So yes, so this is so there's public versus private. Then we can talk about I think I would really want to talk about dilution here, because I think that's the elephant in the room, and very hard pill to swallow for most founders when they're like, oh Deshna, I want to raise my first round of funding, and I was thinking I'll dilute 5-6% of my company, which realistically it's probably 1 or 2 exclusive cases of probably successfully exited founders who can put their terms out there in the public and say that, oh, you want to invest in my company, this is how much I'm going to give you. But 99.9% of the times you're actually diluting about anywhere from 15% to 30% in your first round as an average, right? And that's a very hard pill to swallow. So Vivek, I really want to understand from you, how do you perceive this as a founder also yourself, and what is your take on dilution in this ecosystem?
No, absolutely. I think dilution is always like a sensitive and a much debated topic, whether you like discuss with like internally or with people. It's always like, as a founder, you're always fighting for keeping as much of your company as you can. Again, when you're at a very early stage, you want to not dilute too much with the view that okay, I can grow this much, and then sort of actually look at a dilution where I actually get a very good valuation. But then it's like a chicken and egg situation, right, where you can't actually get to that at a fast pace without funds in a lot of cases. So I think what we tell ourselves as entrepreneurs, or generally when we are working with founders, is that forget about the numbers. Okay, what you have to look is the qualitative aspect of a fundraise. What are you getting out of it? Firstly, definitely that validation or that blue tick sort of when you do that fundraise, that okay, these are the guys who are investing in me. So as a startup, sometimes you are wanting to work with large players, or be out there for consumers also to like, it might be difficult for them to trust you. So sometimes just having that label that okay, I'm funded by so and so, or so and so is a backer in me, goes a long way, right? So that sort of validation you get. Then obviously the people who are investing are coming with some backgrounds, whether as an investor or in their professional lives or otherwise from personal experiences. So there's a lot of feedback that comes, and this is a genuine feedback in terms of how they feel as customers of your company, or more strategic in terms of what you can do in their view to actually grab the market share. It might actually sometimes be that they have invested or evaluated some of your competitors and understand in depth about how their model works. So it can emanate from there as well. So a lot of crucial or important feedback actually flows during a lot of these conversations. Then there is of course their network. So any investor who's coming on board wants actually is your best well-wisher, right? He wants you to grow. He wants you to grow as fast as possible. So he will be the first person who's more than willing to open up their network for you, whether it's in terms of customers, whether it's in terms of suppliers to cut your cost, or it's in terms of investors who can help you raise your next round. Network effect is just invaluable when it comes to getting investors on board. And then of course there's access to the other forms of funding, like sort of like a debt, where a lot of people are more comfortable that there are outside investors. Some of them are more comfortable when there are institutional guys. So that sort of validation that we discussed helps here as well. So that's there. And then of course there are investors who have big pockets or have like pre-commitments to follow on rounds. So that can be really invaluable when you're like starting your next round where you already have some backing, or in cases when you are like sort of not going through a good patch and sort of want that few people to back you even when things are not going right, that they sort of have that understanding of your vision and believe in the sort of efforts that you're putting in, and like feel the same way that you can actually move from this bad patch and actually come back. So sort of double down on their investment at a difficult time. So all in all, I think if you look really look beyond the numbers, there is a lot of merit in terms of going through this process of fundraising.